Welcome to the Graceful Exit podcast. I'm Kimberlee Hoertz, founder of the Graceful Exit, created to educate, empower, and support women as they navigate divorce. Beginning with us, we are putting a stop to the divorce stigma through meaningful conversations about the emotional and endearing experience divorce often brings. My hope is that you'll follow along on this journey and join our community of women navigating divorce with grace. So today we are here to talk about the Graceful Exit, how it was formed, and I wanted to introduce you to Ivy, who is our social media manager, who came on today to do a little Q&A with us on what the Graceful Exit's all about.
Yeah. Hi guys. It's nice to meet everyone virtually. You might not see me too much. In the future I will be a guest, but for the most part I am behind the scenes except for today. So today we are just going to talk about the Graceful Exit, and I figured why not jump in. So Kim, what is the Graceful Exit?
So the Graceful Exit was designed back in 2017. I went through a horrific divorce and I actually hit rock bottom. I knew that I needed a purpose in all of my pain, and from there I decided to go ahead and create this vision of what I thought the Graceful Exit was going to be in 2017. I put it on pause for a bit while I navigated my divorce with raising 4 kiddos and a career. And then in about 2019, I picked it back up. But the Graceful Exit is really everything I wish I had while going through my divorce. So it's what I would describe the Graceful Exit is it's an online platform for women navigating divorce. So from anything from what we refer to as a trusted professional, so it could be a lawyer, a real estate agent, tax professional, whatever you would need advice-wise, it would be housed on the Graceful Exit. So it's a single platform that has all the resources you would need while navigating divorce.
And what inspired you to create this?
I would have paid somebody to walk me through divorce. It was probably the most horrific time in my life. And like I said, I was navigating it while having a full-time career with 4 kiddos in tow, my youngest being 3 months when I left. And it's just everything that inspired me and wish I had out there on a single platform while I was navigating mine. So there was really no sense of community. Yeah. When I went through mine, I was the first of my family, first of my friends, first to everybody I knew, and I didn't have a sense of community. So that was extremely important to me as well when I developed this concept.
Well, what I find bizarre almost is that there hasn't been something like this up until this point. I watched as my parents went through a divorce, and most of the time I was just in school, so it just happened. But I didn't know that you basically had to search for your own trusted professionals like lawyers and real estate agents all on your own, which I thought was kind of crazy.
Yes, so for me, I didn't have the luxury of time on my hands. So because I was working full time, I would often be pulled into court with 4-hour notice. So I didn't have that luxury of going on a Craigslist or an Avvo where you find lawyers, or even Yelp at that time. I just didn't have that. So when I built the Graceful Exit, I knew I had to strategize about bringing on trusted professionals that knew and aligned to our values, which are integrity, compassion, transparency. And it was very important to me that I took the time to vet through these trusted professionals before coming on to the Graceful Exit. I'll give you an example. I've probably interviewed up to 25 lawyers in Orange County, and I still only have 2 on the Graceful Exit right now because there's a lot of lawyers out there that aren't in it for the right reasons. Mm-hmm. And I firsthand experienced that, and it was really important to me that these women didn't have to take the time out of their day when going on to the Graceful Exit. They knew behind the scenes that they were vetted through me firsthand while uploading them onto the Graceful Exit.
And are all of the trusted professionals on the website people that you've used before or from friends and family, or did you find them yourselves?
So it's interesting. I started with a couple that were personal reference for me, and then from there I would have conversations with each of the trusted professionals and ask for their short list of recommendations. They from there would introduce me to their colleagues that thought that they thought would align to our values as well. Then they're vetted through a questionnaire, and then I take the time, 30 to 60 minutes for each one, to personally interview before I actually bring them on.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And are the trusted professionals the same as a collaborative partner?
No. So when I started this, I wanted to do it specifically by region. So I live in Orange County, California, in which pre-COVID, the divorce rate was 72%, which is astronomical if you ask me. Post-COVID, I'm sure it's increased. I haven't done the research, but I'm sure it has increased. And so I really thought that this was going to grow out region by region. So next would be San Diego, Los Angeles, and the Inland Empire. But as I started helping these women, I noticed that there's other services out there that are a nationwide footprint. You don't necessarily have to service a certain state or a region. So then I decided to form what's called a collaborative partner. So those are firms or resources that can serve women from a nationwide perspective, not specifically to a region. But they too are vetted through the same exact process a trusted professional is. And we are hoping to launch that beginning July 1st of this year.
That's awesome. And so I know there's many different trusted professionals on the website. Mm-hmm. Do you plan to add any additional types of trusted professionals,
different categories?
Yeah.
So right now we are at 12 categories within the trusted professional space within each region. We are limiting the number of trusted professionals per region, per category. The reason is I don't want the women to have to navigate tens and hundreds of lawyers, let's say, within Orange County, or real estate agents. I want there to be a specific amount because I know their time is limited as well, and their mind space. When you're going through divorce, you don't have the mind space you would prior or post navigating. And so it was really important for me to limit the number of trusted professionals we bring on. And
so I always wondered how much in each category how many trusted professionals do you think that you would have?
So back to your original question, I apologize. Yeah. So categories, we're at 12 right now, and we are expanding the categories per region exponentially. Okay. That is because every time I talk to another woman, they asked, is this resources on? For instance, paralegals. Not everybody has the income to hire a lawyer. So there's another category we found, such as paralegals, that we will be introducing later in the year to help those that may not have enough money to hire an actual lawyer that can do it themselves through a paralegal. Another example is a private investigator. Mm-hmm. I happened to use one during my divorce, but never thought to put it on the Graceful Exit. And as I've talked to other women, they too have been in the need for a private investigator. So we'll go ahead and feature them as well. So as I begin to navigate this journey with other women and help them through it, I'm learning more and more about who else we need to bring on.
Yeah.
So it could be exponentially, but again, it doesn't matter how many categories, the categories are still going to be limited to 5 at the moment.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so I would consider trusted professional a resource, but what other resources beyond the trusted professionals does the Graceful Exit provide? Because I know that there's more than just people wanting to regenerate. Yeah,
so a lot of women are in this space where they're contemplating divorce and may not have the courage to do it. So it was really important for me. One, I'm not a proponent of divorce. I really want to stop even anybody going through it. I would not wish it upon my worst enemy, but it was important for me to have a space where women felt comfortable if they are navigating it. So hence the Graceful Exit. However, there are resources out there as well on our site that are marriage resources. So if somebody is contemplating a divorce, they can go there as well. And maybe they're on the verge, but maybe we can save it. And so I have a marriage resources dedicated to it. So I have everything from marriage resources through the post-divorce and the new you phase, I call it. So there's going to be beauty tips or finding a new home if you're in the process of doing that. We have the entire divorce legal process on there. There's a domestic violence. A lot of these divorces have had a part of domestic violence in their story. So it was really important for me to start shedding light on the abuse that could happen in marriage as well. So we really have a whole host of resources that are out there as well.
Yeah, and so for any of those different types of resources, obviously this podcast is one of them, but yes, the other kinds of podcasts and books, music, I believe, was that one that's going to be...
So it was really important to me too. I know a huge outlet for me is running. or yoga or any of those outside activities, and I would always listen to these same songs when I was going through divorce to help me motivate to get to the next day. So we created a bunch of different music lists that are out there as well that people can download on Spotify or Apple. So it was really important for me to have every aspect. So yes, there's music, there's different podcasts. This is one out of hundreds out there for podcasts. So we have resources for that. And also books. Books were extremely important, and just getting my self-worth back, navigating the divorce process, parenting while going through divorce, all of that is housed on the Graceful Exit in all categories, so it's easier to find. So they're all out there as well.
And so I know I myself have not gone through divorce, but sometimes women can feel that they are thinking about a divorce, but they don't want their spouse to find out. And so obviously on the Graceful Exit, if they're not in a private search engine, the spouse might be able to find the Graceful Exit and see what they've been looking at. So are there other places for people to find the Graceful Exit and their resources that can kind of be hidden in their day-to-day lives in case they needed it?
Yeah, so example is the podcast,
Yes.
In which this is really a safe place for women to share their story, and this was part of my mission, is to really socialize this conversation so people do not have the fear or guilt or shame that divorce brought. So that is one avenue. The other one is we have what's called our Facebook group, private group. So women feel safe that they can share messages, share resources, share commentary of what has worked well for them and what hasn't. And so that is private as well. So all these are part of what we call our community and connections. Like I said, in my divorce, I was the first out of everybody, and I felt so much shame and guilt. And it was extremely important for me to build a sense of community for these women. And so that's why I felt it was significant to have a sense of community. So through the community, we have the podcast. We also have blog content. So we feature women's stories, personal stories. As part of the healing process, I was, a victim of rape. And so at the age of 18, I finally was able to share that story and be empowered by it and share it with others that they're not alone in this journey. And how we did that is through the blog content. So I think the reading and writing of it all is very important for women navigating divorce too, as a safe space for them to be able to share those stories.
Yeah, and I think having both a audio and a written area for women to get these stories is awesome, because podcast listening is amazing, but what if they can't listen to that in bed next to their spouse if they're thinking about it? Then they can read that content and decide which direction that they should go in from there. So I think that's awesome.
So my entire hope of this experience is really, again, to socialize the conversation about divorce, create that safe place for women to navigate it. Part of my business model is really to put myself out of business, in the sense that I don't want divorce to happen to anybody. So I will be sharing my story and speaking to the teens, the tweens, and the college-aged women about, what are signs of healthy relationships, or what are signs of divorce, or narcissist, or domestic violence, all of those in between, so that perhaps my story can help one of you guys who are younger generation not to ever experience divorce. But should it happen, here is a safe place for resources and content to be shared.
Right. And so with that, who can you, is the Graceful Exit available to everyone?
So one, it's available to women.
Yes.
And it was very important that I differentiated between marketing to men versus women. Again, when you're in divorce, it's very one-sided, men versus women, unfortunately. And so it was really important for me to create that space for women to have a voice. But as far as women go, it is for anybody and everybody. I wanted this resource to be available to everybody, whether you're 20 versus 50, whether high income versus a stay-at-home mom, any race, ethnic background, just any woman that would need this service. It was very important for me not to limit it to certain individuals.
Right. And so with that, what are your goals for the Graceful Exit now and in the future?
Yeah, my goal is really to first and foremost socialize this conversation about divorce. There's just not enough resources out there for women navigating this. 2 is to create that sense of community where women build each other up and not put each other down for having to navigate this. And then 3, from a business perspective, it's to get the word out to as many women as we can and to share this resource for everybody and anybody. The important thing to note, and I guess our differentiation factor, is the Graceful Exit was built upon firsthand empathy and understanding, which is myself going through it. But then the other thing is we're not here to sell anything. If you look on our website, there's absolutely nothing that we're selling. It is really just a space for all the resources to collaborate together to help women navigate this story.
Right. And so, like, the Graceful Exit is for women. Do you in the future see this company expanding to men and children?
Yes. So that's probably the number one question I've been asked is, are you going to market towards men? The answer is yes. Eventually I will. And our business model is going to depict that, where we are going to have a separate site that's generated towards men. However, men, the resources and marketing aspect of it is completely different than that of women. So our end goal is to have the Graceful Exit dedicated to women, to have the men's site dedicated to men, and then finally a third site that is going to unite both the men and women post-divorce to lead a healthy life. A lot of the time, the women going through divorce end up in repeating the cycle and unhealthy relationships again, or trying to navigate a blended family, or trying to date after divorce. It's an entirely other story, other chapter of your life. So it was important for me to create yet another space post-divorce on how to navigate that life. The other question you asked about children.
Yes.
So I have now 6 children of my own. I'm part of a blended family, and that is yet another opportunity where I don't think there's enough resources.
Yeah.
You know, I know you have personally experienced divorce being a child, and to my knowledge, I don't think there's enough resources for children out there. And so that is yet another avenue that I will be exploring, is to have a voice for these younger children while they're developing these, going through the journey as well. It's a whole other chapter for these kiddos that don't understand necessarily what's going on in their life. My youngest was 3 months old when I left, and now he's 4.5. And gosh, if I could have the resources for these kiddos now, I think that will help, again, not repeat the cycle.
Yeah, I'm like you mentioned, I did go through a divorce. Everyone in my family has gone through a divorce. And my cousins, their parents got divorced at the same time my parents did. And that was the family that we connected with every holiday. And so, and it was my dad and my aunt, they were the siblings. So both of their marriages fell apart. Like our whole world has changed. And, as I was going through it, I didn't think it affected me. We didn't have many resources. I don't know if that's just because my parents didn't search for it or because it wasn't there, but as I've gotten older, I've gotten to see that there are not a lot of resources for children. So I do know that there are resources on the Graceful Exit right now for mothers that want to help their children. I know that they obviously have to navigate their own journey and handle the stress that divorce can bring. But it is very important that children as well have that resource, so I'm glad that it's going to be available on both the men and women's site one day.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct. Yeah, it's super important to me that these kiddos have a voice and a place, and education too. But back to your point, your parents got divorced probably, I want to say 10 years ago or around that age. And even in the last 4 years since the Me Too movement, the socialization of divorce has increased significantly. Even since my divorce in 2017, the word divorce or domestic violence or sexual abuse, all of that is being so much more socialized than it was 10 years ago. So we have to adapt to the changes and start socializing and just being empathetic about what people are going through during these times. And so again, that's why I think it's so important to have all these resources out there in one spot.
And I, when I first started the Graceful Exit, it was just starting up. Yeah. And so I can't express how proud I am to work for this company because it's crazy to me that there has not been this company before. I don't plan to get a divorce in the future. I want to break the cycle in my family, but you never know. And it is nice to know that, in the area that I reside, there's these resources. And eventually, as maybe I expand if I needed it, the Graceful Exit will be expanding as well.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's other women of all ages, especially I'm a young adult. So this is, I think, really important to know about. Because even if you're not going through a divorce, I know that there's some resources on there that can help people in relationships in
Absolutely.
general. Yeah, like
Yeah,
therapists and...
It's the whole spectrum
Yeah.
for women right now.
Yeah.
And it's really important to start young and start when, you're in your early 20s, and I think that's the most critical time.
Yeah.
That women need these resources. So I appreciate your story and understanding your background, because yet you have expanded my world and knowledge about how I need to do a better job in socializing this conversation and starting. I have 2 daughters that are 11 right now, and that isn't even young enough. I think we need to continue to talk about this and just be open and transparent. So to your point, not repeat the cycle.
Yeah.
So I thank you for joining me as well.
Yeah. So I think that's all today.
Okay. So thank you for taking the time to sit down and talk about it. And I hope that everybody here can follow the journey on the Graceful Exit. And we just appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.